Hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, Emil Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable right now, right now. I consume the news. I'm a news consumer just like you. And then we have our little talk show because I'm a former talk show host. And you don't need a radio station now if you're a former talk show host. You just open up the mic and say, yeah, this is what I think. And this is really what I think. So we're going to get into the DNC, get into Obama, get into the Obamas, who was better, Michelle or Barack. I've always thought Michelle was better. And once again, she was last night. But Barack was deep. He went deep. You can see what I think about it on my ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund website, aaldef.org/blog, or inquirer.net, which is the news website of the Philippine Inquirer based in Manila. Ooh, I'm an international columnist. Oh, actually, just the U.S. channel for the Philippine diaspora. There are Filipinos there at the DNC. Maybe before this is all over, I'll talk to one or two of them that I know who were there. But we just want to talk about this is an important thing. The Obamas touched on it last night, that something was going on. Something's going on here. But first, before, I do want to mention how people say, well, are you going to do your show? The Fringe is on in Edinburgh, and I have a handful of friends at the Edinburgh Fringe having a good time, although at times doing 30 shows in Edinburgh before, varying size crowds. You want to say, well, maybe I could have done a weekend. Maybe I could have done 10 days of this. But no, they're there for 30, and I trust they're having a good time. It's I think this is the last week or so of the paid Fringe, and the free Fringe. Free Fringe is going. There's a difference, Some of you do the Fringe and you pass a hat, and then others, it's like a paid show, a regular paid show. Anyway, some people have asked, Emil, I know you do Fringe festivals. Where are you going to do your show? Emil Amok, Lost NPR host, wildly Filipino, vegan, trans dad. Well, I might do one, all three, maybe two. But I'm going to do first a storytelling show in Austin, Texas, with my friend, Erilyn Hughes, who is a master storyteller. She is known as the Queen of Weird in Austin, Texas. We met in a storytelling studio that the preeminent monologist, that's what monologist, that's what he says, Mike Daisy, he gives. Every now and then we were in a couple of sessions. I mean, these are like 6 to 8 weeks kind of sessions. And we met through story. We never met in person. And we thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun if when all this pandemic stuff is over, and it's sort of over, it's sort of starting up again, wouldn't it be great if we did a storyteller show? And we've done some online, but we're going to do one in Austin. So go to eventbrite.com, eventbrite.com. Get your tickets. It's $25 a donation, sliding scale, no one refuse. It's free parking, by the way. You got to get to Austin. So if you're my California friend, we're not going to do this. We may ultimately have a stream available after, but we're going to do it live. It's in a small church at the Unity of Austin Church, September 3rd. It's a Tuesday. So make your after Labor Day plans. Come see me in Austin with my friend, the Queen of Weird, Erilyn Hughes. We're just going to tell stories, and we're going to learn the power of storytelling, which played a role. There was a little role of story last night. Michelle Obama mentioned story and the story of Kamala Harris. So story is powerful. Everyone's tapping into it. And you can see what two storytellers can concoct. Erilyn's a character. She's a character. Queen of Weird in Austin. So Queen of Weird and Emil Amok together at the Unity of Austin Church, September 3rd. Get your tickets. It's a live event on Eventbrite, EVENTBRITE.com. Eventbrite. Yeah, that's where you get it. Yeah. All right, so let's get into this, because there's so much buzz about the Democrats. First of all, they had that roll call, that amazing roll call. I mean, if you're from Georgia, you had Little John, and then to think that Little John was a denizen of Donald Trump's empire. I mean, he was on The Apprentice, and there he was dancing for the Democrats. And you could take a boring thing and make it exciting, and that's great. And that's what the Democrats did on day 2. Yesterday was day 2. Today's day 3. We'll talk about that a little later. That should be fun. But day 2, the Democrats did manage to keep that thing going. All 50 states, including, the territories, which really, I mean, we got to talk about the territories at one point. Guam and American Samoa. They that's kind of like a charade thing to cover up for the colonization of these territories. So thank goodness for the Philippines, right? Thank goodness the Philippines is free, because look at them. I mean, they're kind of sometimes crippled, sometimes not crippled, but they're free, at least. Free to reject a dictator, free to accept a dictator. But they're free. I mean, that's the point about the Filipinos. Anyway, so the roll call was the big thing, and that took most of the show time, and then the speeches, and the speeches were all fun. The main speakers, of course, were Doug Emhoff. I mean, a lot of people don't want to talk about him because if America has a misogyny problem, how does the second gentleman, possibly on the verge of becoming the first gentleman, how does he deal with it? He deals with it by not having a hang up about it. I mean, that's why people talk about his speech. I liked it. It was personable. It's different from a kind of speech that you'd hear people give. But you'll notice there was a tone in yesterday's speeches, a kind of a homespun quality. Even the Obamas talked about an America where people connected through the little things in life. And I think that's what, when people talk about Doug Emhoff's story, and they talk about, how they met, and he talks about his mom, talks about the apartment in Brooklyn with the living room furniture in the plaza. I mean, if these are all things that people who, they're kind of cultural stereotypes that if you're among friends, it there's a ring of recognition that you say, oh yeah, that's an old joke. Yeah, we got it. We understand. So there's that kind of, I don't want to call it folksiness, but there was a kind of authenticity there that I think was important to see. This is the guy who's closest to Kamala Harris. And that's why it's important. But I didn't talk about it in my call. I talked about the 2 big speeches, and that was the Obamas, right? Michelle and Barack. And it was a success. It was such a success that they're saying, let's see, what's the latest? Check the news here. Oh, I can't. Can I find it? Yeah. Oh, well. I just want to find, some of the things that they're talking about the impact on the election. God, I hate this sometimes. Well, they're saying that this is now through the second day onto the third. The Harris campaign has brought in $204 million last month. That's 4 times more than the $48 million that former President Trump's campaign raised in the same span. And this is according to the latest FEC filings. 204 million. That means that there's something happening. You wonder, is any of this having an effect on people? Yes. Harris is raising money. The filings show 204 million. That's like 4 or 5 times what Trump has raised. That's something. The DNC running smoothly. Speeches running long, but they're energizing the party and telling the story that the Harris campaign wants. And you say, oh, so you're part of this PR machine. No, well, this is the thing about a campaign. A campaign is unified. A campaign has a message. And the message of all the speakers who got there on the podium, they are in sync. That's the important thing. There's no friction among the Democrats. President Trump, even though he's going around saying all this stuff, calling her a communist, nothing is landing. It really shows how Donald Trump is really flailing, doesn't have an answer because he's not used to people striking back, especially the Democrats who weren't willing to play Donald Trump's game. I mean, when they go low, we go high. I guess that's a Michelle Obama thing that she kind of corrected last night. We have every living Democratic president, Jimmy Carter. Thank God for Jimmy Carter. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, President Biden, they've all endorsed Kamala Harris. And the polls are really shifting. You know, she's still losing in some swing states like Georgia. She's cut into the lead of Donald Trump there. But polls in general show her doing better than Biden in most states, certainly in the general, the nationwide. That's not nearly as important as the swing state votes or swing state polls. And the swing state polls show really great movement on the part of Harris. So tonight we're going to see Tim Walz. You want to see Tim Walz, right? Because he's the white guy everyone likes. He's the lovable, affable, non-billionaire white guy. The thing that I like about Tim Walz is they did a comparison between, you know, the assets of the vice presidential, contenders, and JD Vance he's got a portfolio. He's got money. JD Vance, you don't work for venture capitalists for a period and not come away with some assets. He's got assets. Tim Walz, no, hardly any assets. Hardly any. Moved into the governor's mansion, doesn't own a home. I mean, it's like, you look at the stories that have been out about Walz's holdings. He's just a regular guy. You know, some people say, oh, that doesn't sound very sophisticated, but he's a regular guy. A guy who used to coach football, used to teach social studies. He's the governor. JD Vance is trying to turn him into a liar, which is funny, considering that JD Vance works with maybe the greatest liar in American political history. But I'm curious what Tim Walz is going to say, because he's the white man stopgap, the white man backstop. You know, he's the guy who says, hey, look, I'm a Midwesterner. I'm like you. I'm a regular guy. And you know what? I like Kamala Harris so much. I'm her vice president. A lot of people find Tim Walz relatable. We'll see tonight. Bill Clinton is speaking tonight. That's going to be great because you'll get a different generation. Bill Clinton really is the boomer, right? He was the boomer, and he's getting older. I mean, Biden was silent generation. Clinton's the boomer, and also the communicator. He was the communicator. But now they're saying, oh, he's kind of older. It's not the vegan diet. I think the vegan diet's keeping him alive. Although I don't know if he's totally vegan or part-time. But he'll be speaking tonight. I want to see what he says. I saw him in New York when he first won the nomination. And I'll tell you, it was something. It was in the 90s, 92. And it was something because America was coming out of all those years of Reagan, Bush, and the Democrats were like nowhere. And when Bill Clinton won, you know, there was this mad rush. Hey, we can get back into government. We can get government jobs. Everyone wanted that plum book to see what kind of jobs going to get in the Clinton administration. And so I remember covering that, the 92 convention, and just lingering at the end after he gave his speech, his acceptance speech, thinking there was going to be this great change in America. And I just wonder how he sees where we are now with that point in time in 92. So they'll be interesting to see Clinton in the same way the Obamas, right? In 2000, I guess 2008 was in, or 2009, right? 2009 was it was the one in Denver, the big Denver convention. That was something. And so it's important to have the Obamas and then Clinton, and you'll see generationally how together the Democrats are. Nancy Pelosi speaking tonight. She's always a great speaker. She was my my congressman and my fellow Giants baseball fan. We bumped into so many times. I in that little section that you go underground at Oracle Park. I've just bumped into her so many times. I said, hi, Nancy. So I'm curious what she'll say, because she was instrumental, you know, in all that happened in the last 4 weeks. Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, he's speaking. I think he's going to be attacking Trump. Wes Moore, brilliant African-American governor of Maryland, speaking tonight. Josh Shapiro speaking tonight. Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker. I was wondering what happened. Where's Cory Booker? I haven't seen him. He's speaking tonight. Now, if Shapiro's speaking tonight, I wonder if that means Thursday, tomorrow, Gavin Newsom's night. Gavin Newsom did a little cameo at the roll call for California on Tuesday. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada is tonight. Amy Klobuchar, Chris Murphy, they're all tonight. So those are tonight's speakers. It should be fun. It should be fun, right? But maybe not as fun as the dance party. In fact, you can get a playlist of all the songs. It's kind of cool. You know, Sweet Home Alabama. They played for the Alabama delegation. Let's see. I'm going to a playlist. Oh, you can go to Spotify, and there's a whole complete playlist. Stevie Nicks, Edge of 17. Edge of 17. Let's see. What is the California Love by Tupac, Roger, and Dr. Dre. See, there's a lot of songs here that, like I know Signed, Sealed, Delivered, Stevie Wonder. I know, but I don't know what state. What state got that song, Signed, Sealed, Delivered? Let's see. Love Train by the OJs. Love Train by the OJs. Was that Philadelphia? Was that? Pennsylvania. I don't recall. I just know that everyone wants a piece of the OJs. I went to a Republican. I covered the Republicans in 2000. It was in Philadelphia, and man, the OJs were big. They were big in Philadelphia for that convention. Anyway, so that's that. So now let's talk about the Obamas. Let's get a little transition there. The Obamas, man, they were something, huh? I mean, I write about Michelle Obama in my piece, in my columns on the ALDEF blog, aaldf.org/blog. I mean, I write about her first because she got up there first, and she just went into it. But Barack was just as good, and you know, just think back when that transition occurred, right? And 2024 now, Obama has, he's fairly quiet. He's fairly quiet, been fairly quiet about everything up until now. And so what's great is to see the two of them go tandem here. And how the speeches really went to the heart of Trump's temperament and policies. And unlike the other folks, because they got it directly, the Obamas got it directly. I mean, they didn't have to mention the birther conspiracy. There was a reference to that, but that was the importance of them being the, them dishing the zingers that they did. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who hasn't stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago, Obama said. And then the big laugh that Michelle got. His limited and narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who also happen to be black. Which got a laugh, but she topped it and said, made the comment about, hey, someone tell him the job he's going for is one of those black jobs. And when she said that, the place erupted. So it was just good from the beginning, right? It's like from the very beginning. And she said something wonderfully magical is in the air, isn't it? We're feeling it here in this arena, but it's spreading across this country we love. A familiar feeling that has been buried too deep for far too long. You know what I'm talking about? It's the contagious power of hope. I mean, the two most important things in a speech, right? The beginning and the end. And that beginning was that recognition of that electricity in the room. And the Obamas, especially Michelle, they brought it on. And it was this acknowledgement. Yeah, there's this feeling. There's this. They've been calling it a vibe candidacy of Kamala Harris. But in those opening moments of Michelle Obama, people were locked in. I was locked in at home. I said, she's capturing the moment. The anticipation, the energy, the exhilaration of once again being on the cusp of a brighter day. The chance to vanquish the demons of fear, division, and hate that have consumed us and continue pursuing the unfinished promise of this great nation. The dream that our parents and grandparents fought and died and sacrificed for. She got the rhetoric right. Connecting us with the past, our parents, our grandparents were feeling this anticipation of energy. And what is it? America, she says, hope is making a comeback. And I know what it means. You know what it means. Because she's talking about a post-Trump world. We are so eager to have a post-Trump world. But what would that post-Trump world look like? It would have to be everything that is opposite of what we're feeling today. It would have to be everything that's opposite of the kind of fear and dread and anxiety of that feeling that we are in an existential moment with our democracy. It would have to be that sense that, oh, we are about to rip through this shroud that's been over us. I mean, yeah, you know, we know that Trump lost in 2020, but Joe Biden, my God, how much Joe Biden and Kamala Harris could have accomplished if they didn't have to deal with all the residual impact of those Trump years. How much further we could have gone if we didn't have to spend as much time righting the fallen ship. That is what America was when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took over for Donald Trump. Like I said, 2020, Trump world should have ended, but it didn't. The events of January 6th meant it really never ended. And the litigation that came out of that first Trump administration and the Trumpian vibe, it was like this smoky, smelly, hard to get sense out of the American fabric. It was there. And you'd look at people who are, you know, good, decent Republicans, and they would look at you funny, and you would maybe disengage. It's the politics and division of hate. It was led by Trump. It became the norm. It was led by Trump, even though Trump wasn't even running. He said, the election was rigged, it was stolen from him. So he was just trying to get back what was his. That's how he maintained his position. But Republicans, the majority of the Republicans, beyond the 30% of the MAGA base, they bought it. It's why we have what we have now. This kind of divided government where, God, if we have one or two people to come with us on certain things, it is so hard to get bipartisan support. But this is the politics of division and hate. And this is the thing that the dark vision, where people are thinking things like everything is bad in America. Drug dealers and gangs are crossing the border. People are lurking in the wrong bathrooms. Men want to compete with women in athletics. Immigrants destroying the blood supply. Books are full of anti-American rhetoric. America is losing and falling fast. And you know what? We'd be doing much better if we just had a higher birth rate, especially higher than the immigration rate, especially among the white babies. I mean, it's the fears of those under the grip of Trump. An America of I win, you lose. A selfish world where the pronouns are I and me and not we. Oh, we the people. Oh, that was a phrase that we should know if we're out to defend democracy. You know, unfortunately, it's just not the way. I mean, to compete with that, it's just not a way to sustain a modern American democracy of hope and choice and freedom and justice and equality. You know, that's the frame of the Harris vision of America. And the reason for all the joy and exuberance that we're seeing emanate from Chicago this week. And Michelle Obama, she picked up on that. She felt it. What is this thing we're feeling, like this anticipation that, yeah, we can come out from under this rock that Donald Trump has put over us? That's the joy. That's the exuberance. And if it's for real, how are supporters of this campaign to engage all those who doubt her, who doubt Kamala Harris? You know, the ones who listen to Trump and believe it when he calls her unintelligent or a communist, or when Trump claims he's better looking than her. I mean, isn't that last phrase that he, Donald Trump, is better looking than Kamala Harris? I mean, that's like upholding the supremacy of the white patriarchy, right? That's the only way those are the only standards by which Trump could be considered better looking than Kamala Harris. Or if you have such a visceral antipathy for people of color, that is the only way that you could say that Trump is right when he says he's better looking. He's not better looking. And Michelle Obama, she knows it. She knows all this. And as she said in her speech, she knows how Donald Trump likes to distort the truth. From her speech last night, she said, for years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happened to be black. That got a laugh line. That was a laugh line. And people cheered. And then she tagged it. She said, I want to know who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs. Oh, my God. Place exploded. Because they all heard what Donald Trump said about black jobs. Michelle Obama said, it's the same old con, doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and actually make people's lives better. And she talked about how Trump, his ideas include cutting back on healthcare, education, public education. You know, these are things that are hurtful to people. These are things that Michelle Obama called unpresidential. And she said, it's up to all of us to be the antidote to the darkness and division. I don't care how you identify politically, whether you're Democrat or Republican, independent or none of the above. This is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right. In our hearts. You know, you want an interview? You want policy? This is about what's in our hearts. You know, I get it why Kamala Harris isn't given interview. There'll be plenty of times for interviews in the future. It's just really Donald Trump wanting the media to do his bidding so that public statements are out and Donald Trump can make fun of them, make fun of the statements, call them lies, just totally turn them around upside down. But this is a strategy that he uses, but it's also, this is a strategy that Kamala Harris is using, that, hey, she's giving no interviews, no big news conferences. She's letting the process unfold with the convention. People are on message. People are getting the message. And this is, you know, a nationwide strategy. She's got, 80 days? The people start voting in September, I believe. Early voting starts in September. But the big vote is in November. And frankly, to get a message out that's uniform, that hits everybody, that everyone understands, you got to be in sync. And you can't do 10, 20, 30, whatever, how many interviews. Anyway, interviews That's not the selling point. The selling point is what's in our hearts and how do our hearts match up with the candidate? Does your heart really match up with Donald Trump's? That's a heart? Maybe you need a bypass. Or does your heart add up with Kamala Harris? So I think that's the whole point about the speech. That was the whole point about Doug Emhoff's speech last night. Regular guy. Michelle touched on this in her speech. She talked about her mother, who, was suspicious of folks who took more than what they needed. Michelle Obama said, she and my father did not aspire to be wealthy. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. That's just called having a love and empathy for others and not being greedy, not taking more than your share. That's called being fair. That's not called being communist or being socialist. It's called being fair. What's in your heart? Fairness? I mean, that phrase struck me when Michelle Obama talked about her mom. She and my father did not aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. My mother volunteered at the local school. She always looked out for the other kids on the block. She was glad to do the thankless, unglamorous work that for generations has strengthened the fabric of this nation. The belief that if you do unto others, if you love thy neighbor, if you work and scrape and sacrifice, it will pay off. If not for you, then maybe for your children or your grandchildren. You want to talk about Christian values? Don't look to those somewhat less genuine pro-life Christians who look at this sentence and won't understand it, who will look at this sentence I just read from Michelle Obama's speech and would not understand it. The belief that if you do unto others, if you love thy neighbor, if you work and scrape and sacrifice, it will pay off. If not for you, then maybe for your children or your grandchildren. That's where the values come in. That's the importance of the Obamas, because they were laying it down. These are our values. This is what we believe in. And Michelle says, Kamala Harris and I built our lives on the same foundational values. Even though our mothers grew up an ocean apart, they share the same belief in the promise of this country. That's why her mother moved here from India at 19. It's why she taught Kamala about justice, about the obligation to lift others up, about our responsibility to give more than we take. She'd often tell her daughter, don't sit around and complain about things, do something. And of course, Michelle came back and used that as her call to action. Do something. Do something. Do something to help Kamala get elected. In the speech, Michelle Obama says, with that voice in her head, Kamala went out and she worked hard in school, graduating from an HBCU, Howard, earning her law degree at a state school, then known as UC Hastings School of Law. Then she went on to work for the people, fighting to hold lawbreakers accountable, strengthening the rule of law, fighting to give folks better wages, cheaper prescription drugs, a good education, decent health care, child care, elder care. From a middle-class household, Kamala worked her way up to become Vice President of the United States of America. You show me where there was any affirmative action in there. She earned everything that she got. Everything she did was hard work. Everything she did shows a qualified person moving up. In fact, Michelle Obama says she is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency, and she is the most dignified. A tribute to her mother, to my mother, and to your mother too. The embodiment of the stories we tell ourselves about this country. Her story is your story. It's my story. It's the story of the vast majority of Americans trying to build a better life. Man, there's that story thing, right? Story is powerful. That's why I tell them. Because you tell them and people say, hey, my story too. You tell them, you tell them in the right way and people see the universal. It strikes the nerve in all, and they see how we are related. Her story is your story. It's my story. It's the story of the vast majority of Americans trying to build a better life. Rhetorically, Michelle borrowed from Biden a bit. She said, look, Kamala knows, like we do, that regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life. All our contributions deserve to be accepted and valued because no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one. That's a lie. No one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. That's what American is. It is, hey, it's all of us. It's the we. All of us. Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service, always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. Oh my God. When she said that, I said the affirmative action of generational wealth. And I thought, yeah, I've been saying white affirmative action. But it's not just white. I mean, there are successful, wealthy Asian, brown, African American, people who've been here for generations. And when they pass down their legacy, sometimes it comes with money. Generational wealth could be businesses, real estate holdings, the inheritance, right? Sometimes it's a house, one house. Sometimes it's just a car. I remember when my father died, we didn't own a house. We were renters. My inheritance, whatever was in my dad's wallet. And when I was in the hospital, I just took it from him and stuck it in my pocket before the nurses and doctors could take it and put it in a little paper bag and then give it to me a couple hours later. Most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. That's what it is. It's a grace of the legacy. Failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. Michelle Obama said, if we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. You'll be lucky if you survive, right? Because, there's Donald Trump saying you're fired, right? If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No, we don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No, we put our heads down. We get to work. In America, we do something. And throughout her entire life, that's what we've seen from Kamala Harris, the steel of her spine, the steadiness of her upbringing, the honesty of her example, and yes, the joy of her laughter and her light. Clearly, a finger in the eye of Donald Trump, who says, "Oh, you hear her laugh? Have you heard her laugh?" Laughter is good. Laughter is hope. Laughter is light. But in that passage, she just let Donald Trump have it, saying, "Look, you born with the multiple silver spoons, how did you get where you were? You saw a mountain in front of you and took the escalator up. It's a different world. It is a double standard, right? I mean, I've often wondered, when would someone be the person to tell this to Donald Trump? That, hey, we don't get to change the rules so we always win. Hey, if we bankrupt a business, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. We don't go to bankruptcy court. If things don't go away, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. I mean, that just isn't something that happens to people of color and to women. It should also happen to white men like Donald Trump. And it hasn't happened enough. I think that's the point of that passage. So this was an excellent speech by Michelle Obama. But like I said, I love Barack's speech. And I'll say this. I've always been slightly more partial to Michelle. And she's always said, I don't want to be part of politics. Politics is not my thing. She said it as much about a month ago. But a lot of people wanted her to run for president. And that's not her thing. But I get it. She's a talented speech maker. And Barack Obama yesterday acknowledged that hey, you don't have to follow her. But Barack was good. Because when Michelle said, this is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right, it's up to all of us to be the antidote to the darkness and division. I don't care how you identify politically, whether you're Democrat or Republican, independent or none of the above. This is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right. And Barack Obama knew how to take it from there. In his speech, he talks about, hey, what's the best approach to deal with your political adversaries? It's probably to see them as part of your American family. And if you say you tried it last Thanksgiving, we'll try it again. He says, if a parent or grandparent occasionally says something that makes us cringe, we don't automatically assume they're bad people. We recognize that the world is moving fast, that they need time and maybe a little encouragement to catch up. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend us. Oh, there's that idea of grace. We haven't had much grace. Not in the Trump years. Not in the Trump years that hamstrung the Biden years. We're going to need grace when we go into the post-Trump world, the real post-Trump world, the good post-Trump world. Somehow we just stopped employing that because we're in the era of Trump-infected politics. If we're to have a post-Trump world, we need to do more of that, acting with grace, a sense of grace. And Barack Obama says that's how you build a true Democratic majority, one that can get things done. And by the way, that does not matter just to the people in this country. The rest of the world is watching to see if we can actually pull it off. They don't call it an experiment for nothing, Obama said, no nation has ever tried to build a democracy as big and as diverse as ours, with immigrants over decades coming from around the world, and where our allegiances and our community are defined not by race or blood, but by a common creed. This is the reason upholding our values make a difference. And if we fail to do so, Obama was quick to warn, the world's a little dimmer, and dictators and autocrats feel emboldened, and over time we become less safe. We shouldn't be the world's policemen, and we can't eradicate every cruelty and injustice in the world. But America can be and must be a force for good, discouraging conflict, fighting disease, promoting human rights, protecting the planet from climate change, defending freedom, brokering peace. That's what Kamala Harris believes, and so do most Americans. And each and every phrase that he added to that list, the convention roared. I mean, Trump is an isolationist. He says, hey, we're going to take our pile of money and, the world can go screw itself. That's why he didn't really fulfill any of those positions in during the Trump administration in the State Department. Didn't need him. And he's gonna do whatever he wanted in that first term. He's gonna, if he was ever stopped from doing something, he knows how to do it now. He's getting his second chance, and we shouldn't let him do it, because he will change how America works, how America is seen, how America functions. So Obama is on the roll here, and he brings, after that, we got to be America. We don't have to be the cop, but we have to be a force of good. We got to do the things that say, hey, we're for promoting human rights, protecting the planet from climate change, brokering peace. This is America. But as I said, the crowd was riled up, and then Obama used the power of silence. Made people stop and think. He says, I know these ideas can feel pretty naive. He said, we live in a time of such confusion and rancor, with a culture that puts a premium on things that don't last. Money, fame, status, likes. We chase the approval of strangers on our phones. We build all manners of walls and fences around ourselves, and then we wonder why we feel so alone. And here was his critique of modern life. Here was his critique of our digital world, our enslavement to technology. It was a call for a more human and caring democracy. Said Obama, we don't trust each other as much because we don't take the time to know each other. And in that space between us, politicians and algorithms teach us to caricature each other, control each other, and fear each other. Oh my God. I mean, he's saying, don't fall into the modern BS of life. of your phone, and the world is smaller because of our phones. Because, hey, there's people, there's real people we're dealing with, and you got to trust each other in person more than you do on the. Don't trust people on the phone. If we don't take time to know each other, in that space between us, politicians and algorithms will teach us to caricature each other, control each other, and fear each other. Oh my God. That was. I wanted to turn off my phone. The good news, Obama said, is that you can see a resurgence of the ties that bind, he called them, in cities and small towns across America because, as he said, quote, the vast majority of us do not want to live in a country that's bitter and divided. We want something better. Something better is why people are finding joy in the Harris campaign. We're not alone. We're there. We feel that hope. We feel the anticipation. We need something better because we're tired of living under this shroud, this Trumpian shroud. Something better we want is a post-Trump world that is a return to a simpler time where we work together and look out for each other and care for one another. Barack Obama called it a restoration of what Lincoln called on the eve of Civil War, our bonds of affection. An America that taps what he called the better angels of our nature. But it's that phrase of Lincoln's that he summons up, the bonds of affection. That's what we need. That's what we need to feel in each other. It's a love message, a love of America, of democracy, and of each other. The bonds of affection. Do you feel it? That's what the election's about, Barack Obama said. If we talk to our friends, if we listen to our neighbors, if we work like before, we will elect leaders up and down ballot who will fight for the hopeful, forward-looking America we all believe in, and together we too will build a country that is more secure and more just, more equal, and more free. Wow. And that was Barack Obama's speech. And you can see why I thought he went to the heart. Michelle brought us to know what's in our hearts, and that's how we make our decision who to vote for. But to save our nation, we have to go to the heart as well, said Barack Obama. Those bonds of affection, where are the bonds of affection? If Abraham Lincoln in Civil War times had to come up with that phrase to heal, I think we are in need of a modern version of that phrase to hit all the chimes within, to get us to get that feeling back, what it is to be an American, what it is to be of country, of one another. That's the patriotism we're lacking. But Democrats are discovering a sense of it and spreading it throughout the country, if not the world. I mean, the delegates will go back to where they're from. Hey, this is just day 3. Today we'll have Tim Walz talking. We'll talk about January 6th. We'll talk about why Trump world hung around, didn't go away, didn't dissipate like we had hoped in 2020. And how in 2024 we have to look at what is this post-Trump world we want, that we can anticipate having, because we get that joy from a Kamala Harris campaign. So let's look at day 3 today. Tap into that joy. I mean, there were other good things. Like I said, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff's speech was great. Tammy Duckworth, I liked her attacks on Trump, calling him old cadet bone spurs. And then her IVF experience. And that roll call, right? That was something, the roll call. Dance party time. But on day 2 at the DNC, it was the Obamas who delivered. They delivered the soul, the values of the convention. They put conventioners' joy into context. And we're ready for day 3, right? So that was just some of my reflections of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama's speech last night. Great speeches. You know, conventions are about speeches, and rarely do they reach that rhetorical flourish. It's the modern time, so you're not going to find, you know, the rhetorical flourishes of the 19th century or the 18th century. You're going to find real people being authentic, connecting. But you'll find that language. You'll find that language. Michelle Obama's, the affirmative action, that affirmative action line. I got to remember that. So I've got to go back and read it because not that I forgot, but I only read it off once or twice. But oh well, that affirmative action, not having the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. Hey, as a son of a guy who, my father never owned a car, always rented. By the time I was in high school, he was retired on Social Security. And it wasn't much. I mean, I know the irony of affirmative action of generational wealth. But you know, I heard some conservatives react to Michelle Obama saying, well, what do you mean? You know, this hope thing? You mean there was more hope than what Trump offered people? I mean, the best economy. They offered real jobs. I mean, that's hope. Donald Trump is hope. What is Michelle Obama doing? I don't understand. That's like false hope. I mean, really. I mean, it's funny. You could look at a speech like this and have a kind of view of it, an opinion of it, like I have. And then, but I just know, you go on the internet, you go to a conservative site, you see what people are saying about the Obama speeches, and oh my God, they're saying, a black conservative was saying, oh, what is this hope Michelle Obama's talking about? That's BS. Call it BS. I don't call it BS. That's not BS. And then, how about Barack Obama's speech? My God, it's all about helping each other, going to each other's neighbors' doors, knocking on it, saying hi. When was the last time we did that? I know some people, even during the pandemic, they didn't know their neighbors. They didn't talk to their neighbors. But we need to bring some of that back. That's Midwestern values, right? You may not find that on the East Coast. You may not find that on some of the places on the West Coast, the big urban centers. But we got to find that in the Midwest, right? I'm trying to remember how they treated me when my car broke down for 5 days in Des Moines, Iowa. Not with the kind of Midwestern hospitality that I expected, I'll tell you that. They weren't overtly fearful of me, but they weren't exactly open-arm friendly. We need to bring some of that back. We need to bring some of that hopeful caring for one another, right? All right, Tim Walz tonight. Pete Buttigieg, or as I like to call him, Pete Beauty Judge. Oh, that's the way my dad would say it. Oh, you like the Pete Beauty Judge? Yeah, Dad. Yeah. He's smart. Harvard guy. Mayor Pete. But no, he's secretary now. We got to give him, he deserved the upgrade. He's Secretary Pete. Before we leave, I want to mention again, two storytellers meet. Erlen Hughes meets me, Emil, Amok, Guillermo. Yeah. Eventbrite.com. Get your tickets. $25 donation. It's a show in Austin, Texas, September 3rd. It's Tuesday. It's after Labor Day. So after you're out there jet skiing or whatever you do on Labor Day, do you labor on Labor Day? On the Tuesday, you say, hey, we're in Austin. Let's go see Emil. Fun show. Check it out. Check out Austin. I'm appearing with Erlen Hughes, Queen of Weird, an Austin local. So especially if you're from nearby, you should make it. If you're from like San Antonio or Dallas, come on by. Unity Church of Austin, September 3rd, 7 o'clock. Get your tickets at Eventbrite. Okay. And here we are, back again. All right, so that's it for our show. Day 3 tonight. Day 4, Kamala Harris. What is she going to say? It'll be the speech of her life. The speech of her life. I think she's right. You know, I've kind of reassessed my feelings about her from my past, where, you know, I dealt with her as a reporter or as a columnist, and, you know, I had my bones to pick with her. But hey, if she is the vision of the Obamas as the leader of the post-Trump world, we got to get to that post-Trump world. I mean, people are talking about we got to turn the page. She's the page turner. We need that. We got to go forward. We got to go forward and not go back. All right. I consider all of what we do a kind of meditation on the news, but hey, Sharon Salzberg gave me the best definition of mindfulness, which is mindfulness is or means that guy you don't like. If you're mindful, you don't punch him in the face. It works. It works. It's a good working definition. It saved me. Continues to save me. I'm just human. Oh, that was another good thing about Michelle Obama's speech. Hey, look, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are just human. Remember that. They're just human. And we got to be human and caring toward each other. So how do you do it? I said this was a love speech. It was a love speech. Michelle Obama's was, the Obamas together. This was Democratic love rhetoric. And so, a little loving kindness meditation. So as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time.